You ever have a moment where you realize your whole life was a joke and you were the punchline? That was my birthday, 38 years old. No kids, no fanfare, just my wife, Rachel, and her band of cackling friends, Emily the Instagram philosopher, Tanya the loud one with 3 ex-husbands, and Brooke, who made sarcasm a personality. They called it a prank. I called it the start of my freedom. It began at our house, a quiet little 2-story in the suburbs with a lawn I kept perfectly trimmed and a mortgage I paid on time. Rachel told me to get ready for a surprise. Trust me, she said with that mischievous glint in her eyes I used to find endearing. These days, it just reminded me of a poker player with a loaded hand. They blindfolded me. Said it was part of the game. We're kidnapping you, birthday boy. They joked, half-drunk and high on their own cleverness. I played along, why not? What else was I gonna do? Sit home and listen to Rachel complain about how I fold laundry like a caveman. The ride was long. Laughter. Music. Someone lit a joint. I remember Tanya saying something like, he's gonna freak when he sees it. But it never came. The SUV stopped. The doors opened. You ready? They asked. I nodded, still blindfolded. Then they pushed me out. Gravel crunched under my sneakers. Cold air rushed up my shirt. And then, silence. I pulled the blindfold off, and there I was, standing like an idiot outside a rundown motel off Route 6. The kind of place where truckers went to sleep off whiskey and regret. No balloons. No cake. Just a payphone and a flickering neon sign that read vacancy. I waited. 5 minutes. 10. 20. Still nothing. The SUV was long gone. At first, I thought maybe they'd loop back, laughing hysterically. But the punchline never came. I stood there, birthday hat still strapped to my head, while the last bits of illusion crumbled. That's when the realization hit me. They didn't forget me. They left me. On purpose. I walked. No plan. No destination. Just me and the echo of tires screeching away. The motel clerk watched me like I was trouble when I asked to use the phone. I called Rachel. Straight to voicemail. Emily. Tanya. Brooke. All of them. Not one answered. They were probably still laughing, sipping margaritas somewhere, convinced they'd pulled off the prank of the century. That's when something inside me snapped. It wasn't rage. Not really. It was colder than that. Calmer. Like a switch flipped and all the noise, the obligations, the compromises, the years I spent trying to be the nice guy just went silent. I realized something simple and terrifying. I could leave. No one was stopping me. Not one of them cared enough to check if I was okay. And so, I did. I walked into that motel, rented a room, and sat in the quiet with nothing but the low hum of the air conditioner and my own breath. The next morning, I took a bus to the next city. Used a burner phone to check social media. Rachel had posted a video. Birthday boy ditched us. LOL, with crying laughing emojis. Emily commented, hope you're still alive, Mark. Brooke added, he'll be fine. He's a grown-ass man. I watched that video 5 times. The 6th time, I booked a flight to Lisbon using the emergency savings account Rachel didn't know about. You see, she never paid attention to details, like the fact that I'd been quietly pulling side contracts for the last 2 years, doing remote consulting work under a different name. Cash work. Untraceable. The 7th time I watched the video, I deleted all my social accounts. By the time Rachel finally reported me missing, 3 days later, according to police records, I was already halfway across the Atlantic. There's a strange freedom in being presumed dead. I sat on the ferry from Cadiz to Casablanca, sun in my face, sea wind in my hair, with nothing but a duffel bag, a cheap watch, and an ID that said Caleb Monroe. I picked the name off an old high school classmate who used to cheat off my tests. He flunked out. I didn't. Fair trade. My passport? Bought from a guy named Amir in a back alley internet cafe. He wore gold chains and smelled like motor oil. I paid him in cash, new life discount, he called it. And just like that, Mark Adler was gone. The man who used to fix leaky faucets and buy overpriced anniversary gifts had vanished somewhere between a gravel lot and a drunken prank. I didn't even miss him. In Morocco, I kept my head low. Rented a cheap flat overlooking the water, the kind of place with peeling paint and no hot water. But it had a view. And silence. God, the silence. No Rachel shrieking from the bedroom about Amazon packages. No passive-aggressive text from Tanya. Just the gulls, the waves, and me. I took gigs online under aliases. I rebuilt websites for hotels, optimized systems for overfunded startups. Money trickled in fast. I lived cheap, saved everything. Took night classes on investment strategy, cryptocurrency, even international business law. There's something about losing everything that makes you hungry, not for revenge, not yet, but for mastery. Of yourself. Of the world. I watched Rachel from a distance, too. Used a fake account, of course. At first, she posted TikToks begging for help, fake crying in her robe like a soap opera actress. Have you seen my husband? Please share. One even had sad piano music in the background. 3 weeks later, she posted a photo at brunch, champagne in hand, sunglasses on, captioned, "Healing looks good on me." Emily commented, "You're a warrior, babe." Brooke wrote, "He didn't deserve you anyway." Tanya? "Let's burn his stuff." I laughed so hard I nearly dropped my phone into my mint tea. But rebirth wasn't just about spite. It was about reimagining what a man could be when no one was watching. And so I evolved. I went from Caleb Monroe to MC Adler, international consultant and crypto strategist. Sounded like someone with a yacht, right? I wore tailored shirts now, learned to order wine without sounding like a tourist. I dropped 20 pounds, grew a beard, and for the first time in my life, stood the way a man should, with his damn spine straight. By the end of the first year, I had 5 offshore accounts, a European bank contact who owed me favors, and enough digital assets to buy the kind of life that makes old friends crawl out of their caves. Then I met her. Her name was Lucia, daughter of an Italian winemaker with a sharp tongue and sharper wit. We met at a business forum in Naples, where she caught me silently mocking a crypto bro with no socks and an $80,000 Rolex. "American?" she asked, sipping her espresso. "Formerly," I said. "Currently unaffiliated." She laughed. We talked for 3 hours. I didn't tell her my real story at first, only pieces. She told me hers. Divorced at 27. Worked as a financial analyst before quitting to run her father's estate. She knew loss. She knew reinvention. She knew the cold fire it takes to rebuild yourself without bitterness. We got married 8 months later on a cliff in Amalfi, no guests. Just us, the sea, and a vow that neither of us would ever lie to each other, because we'd already had enough of that for a lifetime. 2 years passed. Then came the yacht. Lucia's family had friends, old, money types with names that made real estate agents drool. One of them, a Dutch billionaire, was retiring. He offered me his 82-meter yacht, La Serena, at a discount after a poker game we both lost badly. I wired the crypto that same night. So there we were, sailing into Cannes, sun overhead, Lucia by my side in a silk dress that made cameras click like gunfire. And that's when it happened. A shriek from the dock. "Oh my God." "Rachel?" I turned. And there they were, Rachel, Tanya, and Emily standing at the edge of the marina like ghosts summoned by arrogance. Their jaws hung slack. Rachel looked older somehow, tied around the eyes, faked and peeling. Tanya wore desperation like perfume, and Emily had gone platinum blonde in a way that screamed midlife rebrand. Rachel took a step forward. "Mark." I took a sip of my champagne and smiled. "Sorry," I said. "It's Caleb, now." Lucia slid her arm into mine, perfectly poised. "Friends of yours?" "Just fans," I murmured, probably mistaking me for someone else. And then we boarded the yacht and sailed away. They say the best revenge is living well. I say the best revenge is letting them watch. Word spread fast after Cannes. Social media lit up like fireworks. Someone snapped a photo of me on La Serena, standing at the helm with Lucia's scarf whipping in the breeze like a banner of victory. I didn't post it. I didn't need to. The internet did it for me. The caption? "Is that Mark Adler? Thought he was dead." Rachel didn't post anything that day. Neither did Tanya. Emily turned her account private. But I knew what was coming. 3 days later, the emails started. "Mark, please. We need to talk." I was drunk. It wasn't supposed to go that far. I didn't know they were going to leave you. "I miss you." Each message came with a different tone, some pathetic, some angry, one even manipulative. "I'm in therapy now, working on myself. You abandoned me." That one nearly made me laugh. I ignored them all. But one message did catch my eye. It was from Gregory Holt, an attorney in New York. "Mr. Adler, I represent your wife, Rachel Adler. She has initiated divorce proceedings and is requesting division of marital assets. Please contact our office at your earliest convenience to resolve this matter amicably." I almost spilled my espresso. The gall, the sheer, polished gall of this woman, abandon me in a prank, declare me missing, and now demand half of what I built after I disappeared? She thought she could shame me into returning. She thought my silence was surrender. She didn't understand. This wasn't absence. This was war. I flew back into the States under a corporate visa registered to Adler International Holdings, a shell company I created in Gibraltar. The name on my passport said Caleb Monroe. I could buy real estate, file taxes, and host galas all without ever uttering the name Mark Adler again. But for legal matters? Oh, Mark had a few things left to say. I walked into Holt's office in Manhattan with my own legal team, two guys who didn't blink when I told them I wanted every email, text, and photo from the last 5 years analyzed for financial fraud and malicious abandonment. We sat across from Rachel and her lawyer in a glass-walled conference room, 26 stories above the city she used to think she owned. She looked rattled, tighter, leaner, lips overfilled. I was twitching like someone who just realized their free meal came with a bill. I wore a charcoal suit in silence. Rachel was the first to speak. "Mark, I'm glad you're alive." "I mean that." I nodded once. Let her squirm. She tried again. "I know we left things unresolved, but I think we canoe." "You left me on the side of a road," I said, my voice cold and flat. "Then went to brunch." Her mouth opened, but no sound came. Gregory stepped in. "Mr. Adler, our understanding is that there were no formal legal declarations of abandonment." My lawyer slid a file across the table. "This is a sworn statement from Ms. Adler's friend, Tanya Voss. She called the prank a joke gone too far and confirmed that Rachel intended to leave Mr. Adler without notifying him." Rachel's face drained of color. He continued. "Further, attached are screenshots from Ms. Adler's social media accounts, texts from her friends joking about leaving the loser behind, and hotel receipts charged to a joint account after she reported him missing." I leaned forward. "You declared me missing for attention. Then you drained the savings." I was scared," Rachel whispered. "I thought something had happened to you." I smiled. It had. Gregory cleared his throat. "In the interest of resolution, we're not settling," my attorney cut in. "We're counterfiling. Malicious abandonment, fraud, emotional distress, and theft." Rachel looked like a deer staring down a freight train. "But you're rich now," she said, her voice cracking. "You don't need any of this." "No," I said. "But you do." The court date was quiet. No cameras. Just the dry rhythm of legal language and Rachel squirming as her texts were read aloud. Things like, "He's too boring to even leave. We'll just ditch him and see how long it takes him to notice. Dead weight. If I wanted to date a calculator, I'd go to Best Buy." That one got a chuckle from the judge. In the end, she walked out with nothing. Not a cent. Not a car. I let her keep the couch. That seemed fair. When reporters tried to get a statement, I gave them 5 words. Some men bury the past. And then I got in the car. Lucia waited for me in the back seat, her hand resting gently on mine. "You done?" she asked. I looked out the window as the courthouse faded behind us. "Not yet," I said, "because there's always one more surprise." Rachel once told me I wasn't ambitious enough. She said it like it was a compliment cloaked in concern. "You're too comfortable," she'd say, "too content being invisible." Turns out invisible was exactly what I needed to become untouchable. After the court gutted her like a fish and the press got their clickbait headline, "Presumed dead husband returns a billionaire, leaves wife penniless," Rachel vanished from the spotlight. No more sad-eyed selfies. No more healing brunches with Tanya. Emily jumped ship too, and I heard Tanya moved to Arizona to start over. That's what they call it when you've burned every bridge and everyone's finally seen who you really are. But me? I didn't vanish. Not this time. No, this time, I made sure my name echoed in every corner of the digital world she tried so hard to impress. It started with a press release. Adler International Holdings had just acquired a mid-sized luxury brand in Manhattan, one that catered exclusively to elite private events, high-profile charity galas, and Fortune 500 networking soirees. The name? Velvet Ivy. You know what Rachel always dreamed of doing? Running luxury events. She talked about it for years, used to tear magazine pages out and leave them on the coffee table like some kind of Pinterest vision board. Of course, she never followed through. That would have taken discipline, follow-up, grit. All the things she traded for lip fillers and wine nights. So I bought the company she used to fantasize about building. And I hired someone new to run it, Lucia. Not because she needed the job, but because I knew she'd run it better than Rachel ever could. Lucia didn't rub it in. That wasn't her style. She didn't need to. The first event Velvet Ivy hosted under Lucia's leadership, a networking gala titled Reinvention, Stories from Men Who Refused to Break. It was subtle, just poetic enough. Just pointed enough. I didn't even have to attend. But Rachel did. I didn't send her an invitation. That would have been too obvious. I sent Tanya one. Tanya, broke, bitter, and 3 vodka sodas from relapsing into petty chaos, couldn't resist sharing it. She posted it on her story with the caption, "If you know, you know." Rachel came alone. Wore a red dress. Too tight, too young for her. A last-ditch effort to cling to the version of herself that had once been worshipped in rooms like this. Lucia spotted her before security did. "Let her in," she told the door staff. "Let's see what she's made of." I watched it unfold on the security feed from my office in Milan, a glass of Amarone in hand. Lucia had someone discreetly filming on a GoPro, just in case. Rachel circled the room like a ghost looking for someone to haunt. No one recognized her. Not in this crowd. These weren't middle-class brunch girls with podcast quotes and astrology tattoos. These were people with trust funds and prenups tighter than airport security. Then she saw it. My photo. It hung in the center of the gala hall, part of a featured timeline showcasing legacy leaders. There I was, beard trimmed, eyes sharp, hand resting on Lucia's waist. Beneath the photo, Caleb Monroe, founder, Adler International Holdings, architect of quiet empires. She stood there for almost 10 minutes, frozen. Then she turned and left without a word. A few days later, I got one last message. "You win. Happy now? I hope it was worth it." It was the last thing she ever said to me. I stared at that message for a long time, not because I had anything left to feel for her, but because it said so much without saying anything. You win. That's what it was all about for her. Winning. Dominance. Control. She never wanted a partner. She wanted a mirror that told her she was always right, always adored, always above. I was done being that mirror. So I didn't respond. I just forwarded the message to a private folder called Receipts. Because I keep everything now. Every email. Every call log. Every contract. Not out of fear, but out of clarity. That's what pain gives you, clarity. Back in Europe, life moved on. I expanded Adler Holdings into clean tech and real estate. Lucia's vineyard went global. We spent summers in the Aegean and winters in Madrid. There were whispers about a child, maybe 2. I won't confirm or deny. Some stories deserve to stay ours. But I'll say this. Every now and then, when I pass through a port and see a desperate woman clinging to a cocktail and fading youth, I think about Rachel. Not with bitterness. Not with longing. Just with a quiet, satisfied knowledge. That sometimes the best revenge isn't about destroying someone else. It's about becoming someone they never saw coming. It was late autumn in Florence, golden leaves spiraling through the breeze, cobblestones slick with rain, and the scent of roasted chestnuts drifting through narrow alleys. Lucia and I had just returned from a gallery opening when the concierge at our hotel handed me a note. No envelope. Just a folded slip of paper. "Meet me at the Ponte Vecchio. Midnight. D." No number. No clue. Just an initial. And my stomach sank. Because I knew exactly who it was. David. My brother. The last time I saw David, he stood in our driveway after my disappearance hit the news. He was the only one who didn't cry on camera. The only one who didn't play the role. While Rachel soaked up sympathy and my so-called friends posted tributes with their best filtered selfies, David stayed quiet. Too quiet. Which meant he either knew something or wanted something. I went alone. Lucia didn't ask questions. She trusted me. She always did. That's how I knew she was nothing like the ghost I left behind. The bridge was empty when I arrived, save for a busker playing a melancholic tune on an old violin. I waited under the weathered archway, the lights from the Arno River casting shadows that danced across the stone. Then I saw him. Same gait. Same leather jacket. A little more gray around the temples. But the eyes, those were the same. Steady, unreadable. The kind of eyes that never blink when the world falls apart. "Mark," he said. "I go by Caleb now," I replied. He gave a tired smirk. "Of course you do." We stood in silence for a moment. 2 men carved from the same stone but weathered by different storms. "You look good," he said. "Different, but good." "Can't say the same for you," I said. "You look like you've been sleeping in confession booths." He laughed once. No bitterness. Just fatigue. "I wasn't part of what they did," he said after a beat. "I know," I replied. "But you didn't stop it either." "I didn't know until afterward. And then you disappeared. I figured you wanted it that way." He was right. But something in his tone, the weight behind the words, told me this wasn't just a guilt trip. So I asked, "Why now?" He reached into his coat and pulled out a photo. Handed it to me. A boy. Maybe 6 or 7. Messy dark hair. A lopsided smile. I thought you should meet your nephew. The truth punched harder than any betrayal ever had. David had a son named Isaac. His mother? A woman I remembered from long ago. A girl he'd dated briefly, back when we both thought we'd grow old in the same cul-de-sac. What does this have to do with me? I asked, voice low. He's sick, David said. Heart condition. Experimental treatment in Zurich. Costs more than I make in a decade. There it was. The ask. You're here for money, I said. I'm here because I don't know where else to turn. I studied his face. The lines around his eyes. The twitch in his jaw. He wasn't lying. And yet, part of me recoiled. For years, I'd been nothing to anyone but a memory. A ghost. An afterthought. And now, suddenly, I mattered again because I had something they needed. I'm not your bank, David, I said. And I'm not your redemption. He looked away. Nodded. Took the rejection like a man. But just as he turned to go, I said, send me the medical file. I'll have someone look into it. He froze. Why? Because I don't owe you, I said. But I don't punish children for their parents' mistakes. 3 weeks later, Lucia and I flew to Zurich. The clinic was quiet, tucked into a hillside that smelled of pine and antiseptic. We watched Isaac through the observation glass, wiry, pale, full of questions. He looked at the world like it owed him nothing but curiosity. And for a moment, I envied that kind of innocence. The procedure was scheduled. I paid for it in full. No fanfare. No from Uncle Caleb card. Just a wire transfer and a silent prayer that the kid wouldn't grow up learning to hate the world before he even had the strength to fight it. David sent me one message after the surgery. He's stable. They say it worked. Thank you. For everything. I still don't deserve it. But thank you. I didn't reply. Not because I hated him, but because some bridges are meant to stay burned. Others just aren't ready to be crossed. Lucia met me on the balcony that night, overlooking the lake. She placed a hand on my shoulder, and I didn't have to say a word. She already knew. I think you needed that, she said. I don't know what I needed, I said, but it felt like something I never got before. Closure? No. Justice. She smiled gently. That's the difference between you and them, she said. You don't just burn things down, Mark. You build something better on the ashes. I stared out at the dark water, its surface reflecting the city lights. You'd think after dismantling Rachel in court, ghosting her in Cannes, and burying my old life under a yacht, a vineyard, and 5 passports, the past would finally give up. But liars have long half-lives, especially the practiced ones. It started with a letter. Not an email, not a DM. An actual letter. Cream-colored envelope. No return address. Postmarked from Chicago. The handwriting? Familiar. Rachel's mother, Ellen. If Rachel was fire, Ellen was ice. A woman who spoke in statements that always ended like questions and treated me like a stray mutt her daughter brought home from the shelter. I opened the letter with a glass of Barolo in one hand and a matchbook in the other, just in case I needed to burn it before it touched my conscience. Mark, I know you have no reason to hear from me, but there's something you should know. Something Rachel never told you. It's about the child. I froze. My stomach nodded. The next line? The child she claimed wasn't yours. Let me rewind. There was a time, early in our marriage, when Rachel told me she was pregnant. I remember the way she broke the news. No joy, no fear. Just strategy. Like she was playing a long game I hadn't agreed to. Then came the miscarriage. At least, that's what she said. She cried for 2 days. Took off work. I held her through it. Ordered takeout. Watched her flick through reality TV shows like nothing had ever happened. Afterward, we never spoke of it again. Because grief had turned into something else, something jagged. She became more distant. More guarded. As if motherhood had been a bullet she dodged. I grieved in silence. I blamed myself for not knowing how to fix it. I blamed the universe for taking away what could have been our reset. Now Ellen's letter said the pregnancy hadn't ended in miscarriage. It ended in adoption. Lucia found me standing on the balcony, letter in hand, knuckles white. She took one look and said, "Who do we need to destroy?" I didn't answer. Not yet. Because my mind was already spinning through every possibility, every timeline, every memory I'd buried under logic and resignation. Could Rachel really have carried a child, my child, and then lied? Not just to me, but to everyone? Lucia sat beside me and read the letter. She didn't cry. She didn't gasp. That wasn't her way. But her hand found mine, firm and steady. "If it's true," she said, "then he or she deserves to know the real you." I hired a private investigator out of Zurich, a woman named Simone who once tracked down a shipping tycoon's lost son between Monaco and Marrakesh. She didn't ask questions, just names, dates, blood type, medical history. Rachel's OB-GYN was still practicing in Chicago. The records had been sealed, but Simone knew which doors to knock on and how much cash made them open. 3 weeks later, I had a name. Aiden. Born June 7, 2017. Adopted by a couple in Michigan. Healthy. Smart. Strong jaw. Brown hair. 7 years old. My son. I didn't fly to Michigan right away. I watched from a distance. Simone sent photos. School reports. Little league games. He was extraordinary. Not because he was mine. Because he had the spark. That quiet fire I used to see in the mirror before the world taught me how to bury it. I'd lost so much. But somehow, this child, this truth, had survived the wreckage. And then Simone gave me something I didn't expect, Rachel's name on the adoption paperwork. Not just a signature. A clause. She'd accepted $25,000 from the adoptive family, under the table. A private support agreement. Technically legal. Morally radioactive. Which meant the pregnancy hadn't been an accident. It had been a transaction. Rachel sold our child. I confronted her the only way I knew would get her attention, publicly. At an investors' gala in New York, Adler Holdings was the keynote sponsor. Lucia and I entered in silence, all eyes on us. Rachel? She wasn't invited. But she always found a way into the room. She was standing near the bar, clinging to a hedge fund leech named Porter Gray. When she saw me, she flinched, like the air shifted and told her judgment had arrived. I walked straight up. Lucia stayed a step behind, calm and poised. "Mark," Rachel said, fake smile already spreading like oil on water. "Didn't expect to see you here." "No," I said. "But I expected you." I slid the adoption file onto the bar, right next to her cocktail. Her face drained of color. "I know," I said. "Everything." She didn't deny it. Not with her voice. Just with the weak deflection of a woman who ran out of stories. "It wasn't supposed to happen," she whispered. "You weren't supposed to find out." "Story of your life," I replied. She reached for the file, but I pulled it back. "This doesn't belong to you anymore." And then I walked away, again, this time not from the ruins of our marriage, but from the lie at its very center.